me about it. Come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams.
Today, we're going to cover 9, 10, 11, and 12 to close out the series and the finale. And this is the time to answer your questions, because everything that I will teach after this, like going into the remainder of the year, is going to, look at this as the foundation, ultimately. Okay, this is the foundation. So if we recall, I've done more spiritual shows and quoted more scriptures in 2023 than I ever have, period, right? Look at that. I say look at that as the foundation in many ways of what we've talked about. I even covered when we came into this 12 universal laws, how I think about this, just in case somebody's like, ooh, what is this he's talking about? What does this man believe? It's like, these are laws of creation. These are the creator's laws. Okay, and you can find them basically spread throughout holy text. They're just not broken out as the law of, right? But do unto others as you would have them do unto you. All the scriptures on karma are basically kind of rolled up into the law of cause and effect. All right, so I'm going to be very clear about that, because sometimes people are like, what is he talking about? I don't believe in that. And it's like, well, whether you believe in it or not, it's true. And it's impacting you. And this is one of the reasons that we've been having this conversation, because I believe that as a community, we lack our own knowledge. This is our knowledge. And everybody else knows it but us. Well, that's not true. Not everybody else, but we should know it, because these are the things that our ancestors distinguished and documented. And very few of us understand it and know it. Something I said last week, and it really hit me this morning. I was, thinking about this, and I read through my notes. And it hit me this morning. The law of attraction states, like attracts like, and the thoughts and emotions and energy we emit into the world attract similar experiences and circumstances into our lives. If you want to understand why you are not attracting what it is that you intend to attract, the first thing that you should investigate are your distractions. The first thing that you should investigate are the weeds in your garden. Last night, I, dropped some grass seed around the house. So we dug up some good dirt, put down some new soil, dropped some grass seed, and started watering it, right? This has been like a 2-week process, just in certain parts of the lawn. Now, guess what started to show up before the grass could show up? Weeds. I'm like, where did they come from? Like, how do they even, it's almost like they can just, now we know the seeds and birds and things like that, like this is where they come from, right? The birds are attracted to the seeds. They already got elements of, weed seeds in their mouths. They put it, and they peck the ground. Man, them weeds come like that. Everything that happens on the Creator's green earth follows a rhythm. Okay, before the grass can grow, before the intended seeds grow, weeds show up. If you don't get underneath what is distracting you, it will choke out your possibilities. I can talk about the law of attraction. I can cover these last 4 any way that I want to. But if you can't, on a very personal level, be so clear on your vision that you have the discipline, because discipline comes from vision. You have the discipline to take out the weeds, right? I was doing this last night. I saw it. I'm like, man, the grass is starting to grow. And you got these like little fine, grass stems coming up. They're not even, they're still immature. And then you got this like mature weed covering it up. Just like another way to think about it is you distinguish what it is you intend to create. You begin taking inspired action. This is why I had to take a step back, because we're talking about inspired action. You start taking inspired action. We're going to talk more about that. And then all of a sudden, you get distracted. Something covers it up. And then we wonder why we can't create what we intend to create. You have to weed your garden of possibility. What do I mean by that? You have to clear the distractions that are hindering your ability to powerfully create your possibilities. I hope we get that. Law number 9. If we go to law number 9, then what we see here is that it's not just the law of action, but it is the law of inspired action. What do we mean by that? This is action that is emotionally, what is inspiration? It's an emotion. I really want us to get this. So these are emotional actions that I'm taking. Inspired actions, motivated action that is connected to some type of purpose. It has to be purposeful action if it's going to be inspired action. So as I take the action, I am mentally very clear about why I'm doing this, right? I'm emotionally tuned in, like I can feel it. I'm like, ooh, yes, I'm making this happen, right? I'm emotionally tuned in. Why do my emotions matter? Because my emotions are energy in motion. They send out a frequency. They send out a vibration. Back to law number 2, right? They send out a vibration. And so I'm taking inspired action. It is not enough to think about. I talked about this in series 3. It is not enough to think about or dream about something. We must take action that is aligned with the desire that we have to manifest it into reality. I'm a creator. How am I a creator? Because I'm a child of God. God put his spirit inside of me. And if he is the macro creator of all things, and I have a small, it could be the size of a pin drop, right? The creator is so magnificent, that's all you need to create yourself. That is all you need. No, all you need. But but imagine this, right? It is not the size of a pin drop because it powers your entire being. It is the essence of who you are. Your spirit is the essence of who you are, and it is life itself. So not only does it power the body, but it powers everything that you put your mind to. If you follow these principles, if you follow these laws. So let me give you an example. Let's say someone in the community listening, one of their goals is to become a successful writer, right? I'm thinking of Octavia Butler, who, as a young woman, scribbled on the back of her notepad her declarations. By the way, I got. If you go to my Instagram, I got a whole video on Octavia Butler. You can learn more about her. If you go to my Instagram and just go back to what I put up in February for Black History Month, she was one of my Black History Month heroes because of her ability to manifest. Octavia Butler, before she was a well-known, one of the most successful science fiction writers on the planet, right? Sister, by the way. Also, get this. You do know that the sisters dominate science fiction. Y'all know that? The Matrix is written by a sister, right? The sisters dominate science fiction, right? So don't get it. But anyway, so Octavia Butler wrote on the back of her notebook that I shall be a best-selling New York Times author, right? So she did the work. She wrote it down. She declared it. But she didn't sit around and wait for the book to write itself. Right? She didn't, meditate on all the different book titles that she could possibly generate in her lifetime. Like, she actually started writing. This is what it takes. So if you want to be a successful writer, you can't just imagine the books that you want to be published. You have to take inspired action by writing regularly and then seeking out opportunities to become who it is you intend to be. Submitting your work to publishers, letting them say this will never do. Because this is what happens, right? This is what happened to the sister that wrote The Matrix. And then they stole it. And then she had to spend years in court fighting and got it, I think she got a couple of billion. Like, because it's a multi-billion-dollar franchise, The Matrix, right? It's just like crazy. But she got a lot of money. My point is taking action. Now, one of the examples that I love to use when it comes to taking inspired action is Frederick Douglass. And I love to use him because I think in many ways what Frederick Douglass writes in his autobiography is the experience that many of us have when it comes to taking inspired action or when it comes to creating what it is that we intend to create. So Frederick Douglass, everything that he created, he had already saw in his mind. He saw it in his mind. And then he would pray about it. Like, this is in his autobiography. He was a slave, like a chattel slave, a property of someone else. And he would pray about being free. And this is like, I hope we get this morning. I really do, because somebody right now, you've been spending years in your prayer closet. Years. Asking the Creator for what it is that you want. And then it hit Frederick Douglass. It hit him that the only thing that he hadn't done is taken inspired action. Like, if he were to be free, he actually had to run. Ooh, this is scary. See, this is where many times we begin to mess up, right? Because then fear comes in. It's like, wait, you mean I got to get in front of the people? You mean I got to let them read my writing? Well, if you're going to be a best-selling author, isn't that the point? Right? Like, whatever it may be. Like, Linnell, you mean I actually have to do what it is I'm afraid of? Now, let's put this in context. Let's put this in context, you all. Because I really want us to get that many times the things that we're most afraid of don't even begin to line up with the examples of the great. Now, for those of you on Facebook, somebody type into the comments what you know to be the penalty for running for a man. The penalty for running from your master for a man. Like, there are a number of different penalties, right? But I just really want us to understand how important it is for us to overcome our fear of action. Like, the penalties, just type into the Facebook feed, the penalties, or you can call me and let me know, 773-591-1690. What were the penalties for a man if he ran from slavery? Anybody know? Somebody said death. Not exactly. You might want to die. Right? But, you got to remember, you're an investment, brother. Like, they didn't want to just kill you. Now, they might want you to make you think you was going to die. But, you know, they didn't want to. But I want us to really understand. Okay, so somebody said death or loss of a foot. That was one. There was something else that would happen to men in particular if they ran. Some, you know, not all the time, but sometimes. Two more things. So I really want us to get like what this brother was up against in order for him to take inspired action. That's right. So penalties, your foot could get cut off. You could lose a limb. You could lose fingers. You could be maimed. You could also be broken. What do I mean by broken? They would buck break these men, right? And then the last one is castration. Okay. I really, and Lisa said whipping, right? You could get flogged. Now let's sit with this for a moment. Because Frederick Douglass, what he states in his autobiography is that I prayed for 20 years and got no answers until I prayed with my legs. He had to take action in the face of fears that many of us will never encounter. Some of us is like, oh, well, you know, I might lose a little money. I might lose a little time. Like, I really want you to get present to the fears that come up for you around what it is that you intend to create. Like, maybe even write them down in this moment. Like, what are some of your biggest fears? I'm going to check in with Justin and Ade. They're right here in the studio, right? Like, when you think about ultimately what it is that you want to create, Justin, turn on your mic and turn on Ade's mic. Like, when you think, I just want these, just to give us an example, okay, of our fears in the 21st century. These are the things that keep us stuck. And I'll share one of mine, okay? Like, Ade, what would you say is just one of your fears, by the way, that we all probably share when it comes to taking inspired action that you know is just going to take you to the next level? Or potentially could, right? Because it's not guaranteed. That's why the fear is there, right? What's one fear?
Probably not being good enough.
Okay, not being good enough. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't mean in any way, by the way, that's one of my fears. Okay. Like not being like, you go to this next level, I'm not good enough. I could fail publicly. I could, you know, really fall on my face in front of people, lose my credibility, all those kind of, you know, I get it. All right, Justin, what's one of yours?
Not being able to sustain.
Hold on. Let's make sure the audience can hear it. Say it again.
Not being able to sustain.
Not being able to sustain what's created.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I might go out and do it.
Yeah.
But then I can't sustain it.
Yeah.
And everything falls apart. Okay. Now, brothers, that fear that you have, not to belittle your fear, but in contrast to losing a foot. Like if you, to that point, Justin, whatever it is that you're like, okay, what if I can't sustain it? Would you rather have that fear or the fear of losing your limb?
Of course, not being able to sustain.
Right, not being able to sustain, right. So when you think about this, I want us to kind of just levy this up, right? Should you let that stop you?
Nah.
What about the fear of castration, Ade? It's hard to even... This brother, so let's put it, because I think sometimes we don't really understand the examples that we have. Let's put it, Frederick Douglass ran away in the face of these type of fears. And some of us scared about what people gonna say. This brother ran away in the face of potentially getting maimed, flogged. We ain't talking about a little whipping. Talking about a big whipping. Blood. Right? And then as it healed, you know, pus and infection and fever. Like he said, it don't matter. I believe the Creator has something better for me. And he ran. But he said it didn't happen. He prayed about it. Because, here's the thing. Many of us, we use prayer as a way to escape our fear of action. I'm just praying for that moment. I'm praying for the Lord to open the right door. It's like I want him to do it all for me. I imagine that Frederick Douglass was hoping that some good white man would show up to the plantation one day and say, I'm buying him. And then put him in his carriage and take him north and set him free. See, because that's what many of us are looking for in parallel to what it is that we're supposed to do. That's what we think an open door is. And the Creator is saying, no, I need you to run through the field, cross the river, avoid the dogs, and keep moving until you get to freedom. Right? And we're like, well, Lord, that don't seem right. Inspired action. Are we getting this morning? Are you also getting what gets in the way of your action? And not to minimize our fears, but I just really want us to see what the ancestors had to go through in contrast to what we're going through and how stuck we tend to be. The law of inspired action. I want you to get present to the action right now that you're supposed to be taking. What is the action right now that in your life you're supposed to be taking? Whether it's in the area of health and well-being, mental fitness. Maybe there's something you're supposed to be learning. Something it's kind of like, well, I don't have the time, or this is going to fall apart. Whatever fears are in the way of that. Maybe it's in the area of relationship. I had a conversation with the Slayer Goals members about professional relationships. One of the things that hit us is fear when we're talking to superiors. Well, what are they going to think about me? I just want us to put these fears in the context of our ancestors' fears. And if we are to build, if we are to take it to the next level, how can we siphon just a bit of the courage that they displayed? I think about the sister Harriet Tubman, who didn't just go to the South and free slaves once. What was the penalty again for what she was doing? It's not like this sister was just gallivanting back and forth. Can you imagine the night before she would leave? I imagine she didn't sleep. I imagine she spent the evening praying. Order my steps. Support me. And see, that's a different prayer from open the door. See, because when we get into action, I can tell you from experience, your prayers get different. Because now when you're in action, now you're guide me, give me wisdom, order my steps. That's it ain't just, Lord, I desire, I want. Because when you're in action, now you're now I need the guidance. Now I need to slow down and listen. I can't always be driving with music. Sometimes I got to drive in quiet because I got things going. I need to hear his voice. Maybe one of the reasons many of us struggle with connecting with the Creator is because there's no reason to. You're not in alignment. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. And as soon as you begin doing what you're supposed to do, the relationship will deepen because now you got to count on him and not on you. That's the other thing about the 21st century. It's real easy to live every day, get up, keep moving for the most part, without any real difficulty. And the things that we call difficulty, I can't pay this bill. I got this white sheet of paper that gives me anxiety. And I'm not minimizing it. I'm just saying, in contrast to our ancestors, how mentally tough are you? And by the way, their blood flows through your veins? Are you making them proud? Are you taking inspired action? Are you moving forward? Whew, this is hitting me, man. It's like the brother Frederick Douglass said, I prayed for 20 years with no answer until I prayed with my legs. And then when he ran, he encountered deeper fears. And every time, this is what I love about the Creator. Like when you follow these principles and you align yourself, he delivers. He delivers. And then look at who Frederick Douglass became. And often what happens is we look at who the greats become, but we don't look at the process. We don't look at the process. And we can just go down the names, right? Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X. I mean, people who stood in the face. I mean, think about the inspired action of Muhammad Ali not to join the draft. You get how easy it would have been to just sign the paperwork and go overseas, fight a few bouts, you know, in front of the soldiers to inspire them. Because they weren't going to put him on the front line. They just wanted him to bow. They just wanted him to bow. And then think about how easily some of us bow. I'll fire you. Oh, no. We step outside of all our principles. What action should you be taking this morning? As we go to break, it's a great time just to write down the inspired action you will take. We're to the midpoint of the year. What actions will you take and what will it create in your life? How do you know your inspired action is God inspired? It's a phenomenal question, a great question. And here's the long and short of the answer that I gave. I was actually in the middle of the answer when we came back from break. So those of you on Facebook, you didn't hear any intro music. We were talking all the way up to the time for the show. Here's the answer, like the long and short of this answer, okay? Think of your passions. And when I say your passions, like the passions that you have, like that are aligned with your purpose. And this is why knowing your life's purpose is so important. Think of those passions as your spiritual GPS. Passions are not permanent. I'll give you a phenomenal example. One of the passions that has begun to fester inside of me is a passion for really understanding and investigating the wisdom of parenting. I ain't had this passion 20 years ago, right? It wasn't there. Passions are temporary. They come and go, right? My passion was for adults, like inspiring and motivating adults. And now my passion is beginning to move to parenting. And let me tell you why, right? But here's a passion is a spiritual GPS. And my mom did a lot of work in parenting, and I thought that was amazing, and I still did. I'm like, that's what my mom does, et cetera, et cetera. What the Creator revealed to me, don't get offended. These are like personal conversations between the Creator and I. I'm just to lay it out, right? But this is how you know your inspired action or what you're being told is aligned with the Creator, because your passion, He gives you a passion. And it's like a seed. You can't shake it, by the way. And the passion kind of burns. So you start looking at things and you're interested in things you weren't interested in before. And it's telling you that this is the next step. This is the next step. So then what do? You pray about it, right? You start to talk to the Creator about it. And this is important, you all, because when you get a passion, like some of us are so programmed to drive with music, we can't be in conversation with the Creator. Driving is a phenomenal time to be in conversation. Like, to me, I think it's a phenomenal time to talk to God. I'm driving. I'm alone in the car. It's a phenomenal time to be in a conversation. Some of y'all call your girlfriends, right, or your buddy, and you talk about something you can't even remember. I prefer to, just check my spirit and see if there's a conversation I need to have with the Creator, right? Because then what happens is when you have that passion, you get one action to take. This is how the Creator works. Like and this is what gives many of you all who want to be in control anxiety, because you want the whole playbook. And the Creator says, take step one. You go, well, what do I do after that? What do I do after that? Right? What did Martin Luther King say? What's his quote? Faith is taking a step and not seeing the next step. Right? That's faith. That's how he was led. Like the Creator would tell him to do something. He'd be like, well, Lord, just go do it. Okay. Right? And then once you do it, the Creator is always faithful to give you step number 2. You just have to take step number 1. And if you want to know when he's giving you inspired action, just take the first step and watch what happens. And then you can prove it. You can prove it when you get step number 2 out of nowhere. There's so many things I didn't know how to do. There's so many things goals I've written and declared, and all I had was the first action. I couldn't even fill out a whole project plan. I don't even know what to do next. I'm looking at the paper. It's like, well, this is all I know. That this is the only milestone I have. So let me just go after that milestone. And as I do that, the rest of the milestones begin to appear. Action, 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 action. These laws are in constant motion, whether you think about it or not. Right? So let's think of the law of vibration. You might not even be thinking about your current vibration. The law is still working, right? Let's think about the law of cause and effect. You may not even be thinking about the consequence of an action. The law is still working, right? Let's think about the law of attraction, which is a secondary law. Let's keep that in mind, right? It's a secondary law to the primary law of the law of vibration. You may not be thinking about what you're attracting. The law is still working. We can go through all of them, law of polarity, law of gender. We can go through all of these laws, and they are working with every action, every thought, every moment of your life. This is why I call this one of the most important lessons that I will teach, because it's not like the laws come and go based on your attention to them. The laws are here. It's no different than when you wake up in the morning, gravity is working. Like, it ain't like you wake up and you just float off the bed. Like, well, I wasn't thinking about gravity, so it stopped working. No, gravity is always working. Always. And so I want you to think about these 12 universal laws the same way. Each one is working. If I'm focused on the law of rhythm, it's not like my focus on the law of rhythm is going to discount something that's happening to me in the law of vibration. If my vibration and frequency is off, but I'm focused on the law of rhythm, I'm still off. And so there's a phenomenal question. And this is one of the reasons I say it's the most important lesson. And we have to really study these laws and understand these laws and check in with ourselves. I was having a conversation with a group of women at her institute on Tuesday. And what I was asked to come in and talk about is how we relate to money, right? Money does something weird to most of our frequencies. I could just talk. You could say, perfect example is how the internet has little to no regard for the billionaires who died in a submarine because they were rich, right? Now, if it was a bunch of kids down there who had an opportunity, the world would be, oh my God, in tears, right? These are still lives. Then the contrast, now let me be clear. There is a contrast to media coverage between 700 immigrants on the boat and 5 millionaires in a submarine. That doesn't mean that I get to have a vibration for the billionaires that's like, I don't care. I don't care about their lives and the impact of their families, okay? Every life matters. 5 lives matter, 700 lives matter. In my opinion, they should have gotten equal coverage, period, right? Lives matter. Now, nobody talked about the boat with 700 immigrants that was sinking. And that tells you the vibration of the media and what they're on, right? And what they care about. And then you have to ask yourself, do I want to be aligned with that vibration? That's why I don't watch the news. So my point in saying all this is that every law matters all the time. Every law matters. And in particular with money, right? Our frequencies come up and down. All it takes, like I was giving the example of a bill. I could get a bill in the mail, and it's a phenomenal time to check in on the law of vibration. What am I feeling? What am I emitting as I look at this bill? Well, no, you don't understand what I have in my account. What you have in your account doesn't matter as much as your frequency and your vibration. If you look at that bill that you don't have the money to pay, and you have gratitude for the bill, you have gratitude that the Creator is going to support you in figuring it out, right? Go to the law, number 9, inspired action. And when you receive the action, you take it despite your fears. Watch what happens.
When you think about how the slaves were brainwashed back then, told that, God's going to, wanted this to, wanted this to be like, all that stuff. You got to ask yourself, you got 10, 20 million slaves, and you got only a few masters, basically, compared to slaves. And how can you control 1 million people when there's only 100 of y'all?
How can you control? Think about this.
That's amazing.
Think about this. Think about this, though. They locked the entire country down in 2020. Awful word, brother. Don't leave your house. They locked the entire country down. It don't matter what color you were. They locked the entire country down. Then they told you to put on a mask, right? And only go out for essential needs.
But you notice people still did what they wanted to do, though. You notice that. They still say, forget all that. I'm going to do what I want.
A few. The majority of folks followed the rules.
And the reason they probably did that, the majority of the world, because they were fearing, I don't want to get...
Magic word, F-E-A-R.
Right.
Fear.
But you see what happened later. A year later after that, people said, nah, I ain't scared no more.
Well, yeah, I didn't figure it out. Right?
But in slavery, they never said, I'm not scared no more. I'm going to overthrow this. They just kept on going.
I'm going to do what I want to do now.
Right. They had no choice. They couldn't do what they want to do because the consequences, what you just said, castrated.
And here's the thing.
Murdered.
What's happening?
That's a serious thing to think about.
What's happening now is not physical castration. It's spiritual.
Right.
How we create is through the spirit. And if I can castrate your spirit, then you can't create. How do I castrate your spirit?
Take it away.
Entertainment. See, now we're not dealing with pain and the potential loss of limb, etc. What we're dealing with now is being eased to sleep and overly entertained and distracted. That is how we're being spiritually castrated now. And what I mean by spiritual castration is this. Let me be very clear. How does a man procreate? How does he create? Right? And so if I can keep you from creating, that's castration. How are they keeping us from creating? Entertainment. That's how we're being spiritually castrated now. The law of compensation. The law of compensation says that effort is rewarded. My effort and contributions are rewarded, right? This aligns with the law of inspired action. So we receive what we give, whether it's in the form of money, recognition, love, or other forms of abundance. You receive what you give. Now, some would say this is the law of karma. See that, and again, I'm telling you all, these all the law of cause and effect. The law of compensation is a secondary law to the law of cause and effect. This is why we can go so quickly now. Okay? The law of compensation basically states, let me give you an example. The amount of money or good that you receive will be in direct proportion to what it is that you've done. So let's put this in economic terms. I was sharing this with a group of people just recently. When you talk about business, I was sharing this with a group of entrepreneurs. If you're an entrepreneur, your business revenue, your gross profit is based on the sum value of what it is that you've given. If you want to see your business grow, here's what happens. A lot of times when we want to see our business grow, we think, I need to do more. What the law of compensation says is not necessarily about what you do. It's about the value of what it is you give. So do I have to give more if I increase the value of? Let me give you a personal example of what I mean. As an entrepreneur myself, when I figured out, I'm like, oh, I can write curriculum. So I was coaching, and then I started getting these training opportunities. And I'm like, I got a talent. I have a talent for teaching. I know that. Right. So then if I combine that talent with writing curriculum for organizations, that all of a sudden, the same time, think about this, the same time that I spend on creating a show, a 2-hour show, which, by the way, the creator, I believe, over the last decade has allowed me to hone the talent in giving. I was giving of myself on the radio, right? I'm sharing this. Nobody's paying me. I'm giving of my time. I'm giving of my resources to share. Then I'm also honing a skill set at the same time that then I'm able to use that gives value to Fortune 500 companies, to Fortune 1000 companies. And now I'm teaching, let's say, 50 people, 100 people at a time. And so the compensation goes up the same way. The law of compensation. The more I can give, the more I'll receive. Notice I didn't say the more that I do. You know how they talk about hard work versus smart work? For my entrepreneurs listening, I hope this is clicking. A couple of things you should think about. Are you in the lane of your true talents and abilities? This is something we talk about in the purpose course. This is why it's so important. And then for those of you in the work arena, what's the value that you bring to that organization? How easy is it to replace you? We just had the conversation about AI. How easy is it to replace you? Because what happens is if what you're giving doesn't, and this is a universal law, right? So then what you were giving 10 years ago ranked up here. So you got this. Then it starts to lose its value. And then eventually you get this. This is how people can be like, I did the same thing like 10 years ago for this much money. But then in the marketplace, it doesn't. The law of compensation says, well, in the marketplace, it doesn't equate to that anymore. So now you're down here. When we understand these laws, man, it changes everything. Here's another one of the things I've talked about is when we go to work, why it's so important to give our all in the time that we're there. Right? See, you can't fool these laws, the law of compensation. You can't fool the law of compensation. If I'm not bringing excellence, then I won't get back excellence. If I consistently go above and beyond in my job, then the law of compensation says that at some point I must be rewarded. It doesn't matter if I have a racist boss. It doesn't matter what at some point I must be rewarded. Well, you understand, man, my boss is cheap and he won't blah, blah, blah. It's like the law of compensation says that if you give it, you will receive it. Now, here's a really good book that will support you in this. It's called The Go-Giver. Write that down. It's a phenomenal book. The Go-Giver. And it talks about giving. 4 chapters, like 4 chapters of the book talks about giving. And then the last chapter, they talk about, chapter 5, they talk about receiving. One of the reasons many people, you like, well, now I give so much, but you don't know how to receive. Like, take that in real quick. This is something I had to learn. It happened just last night. We headed back to Ghana. We do donations. We raised like $1,200 on the last trip. So now we're bringing canes to a school down there for the blind. And so the young lady who's in charge of that, she got the cane. She brought them to the house. My wife and I, we were preparing. My son is having a birthday party today. We're preparing for the party. We're behind, right? She was like, y'all need any help? Now, a lot of folks would say no. No, I don't want to impose. You know what my question was? Are you seriously able to help? You got to learn how to receive. I can. Like, man, well, we need someone to go to the store for us. Gave her a credit card, gave her some stuff. She went to the store. We were able to receive a blessing because we have the capacity and the know-how to receive. Many of us aren't being blessed, not because the blessings aren't showing up, but because we don't know how to receive them. We don't know how to say, yes, I'll take that. Brother, I want to bless you with this little package. No, brother, you don't have to give that to me. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Right? You've been giving. And now somebody wants to receive, will give you something, you won't receive it. You're throwing the law out of whack. And then you be like, oh, nobody cares about me. Nobody thinks I'm special. And it's like, no, people have been trying to give to you. You just been saying no. Law number 11. The law of perpetual transmutation of energy. I'm going to have to spend some time explaining this. The law of perpetual transmutation of energy. Okay. We talked about energy when we talked about law number 2, the law of vibration. And again, remember that energy is like a frequency. Okay. So energy is always flowing. And it can be transformed, right, from one form to another form. And as human beings, right, this is what makes us so special. We have the power to redirect and transform our energy for positive outcomes. So I can take something that's negative, right? Negative energy can come in and I can transform the energy, right? When I was a child, like I wanted to be a magician, right? I didn't realize that I had the capacity. You want to know magic. You want to be a wizard. Learn how to transform negative energy that's coming at you into positive energy. That's magic. That's the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. Energy is always flowing, right? The only constant in our universe is change. Energy is always flowing. So if the only constant in the outcome of energy is change, let's think about that, right? So energy is always flowing, and the best way to see this energy is how it shows up as change. What do human beings dislike most? Change. So then you have to ask yourself then, if I really want to take on understanding this law of perpetual transmutation of energy, do I actually appreciate change? Do I welcome change? Now, let me give you an example of what I mean. Someone can introduce an idea. Nah, I don't like that idea. That's not a good idea, That's a horrible idea. Well, an idea is energy. And what happens is we'll knock down ideas. Instead of what this law states is, instead of knocking down the idea, you honor the energy of that idea to really investigate what can be manifested from it. To really look at how we can use this energy in a way that is in alignment with what it is we intend to create. Here's a real life example of this. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt yourself feeling angry and frustrated? Like, man, I don't like how this went down. I feel disrespected. I mean, it could go, I shared an example of how this happened for me not too long ago in the gym when the guy bust my mouth open, right? He elbowed me. I was angry. And I felt how the energy inside my body wanted to go into hostility. It wanted to get violent. I'm being straight. As a man, I could feel a surge of violent intentions come up. Instead of continuing to play ball and allow that energy to, take its course, I went to the weight room. I took that energy, that negative energy, and I put it into a positive function that didn't hurt anybody, right? I pushed it out on the bench. Pull-ups, So I took that same energy and I transformed it into something else. When you learn how to do this, when you learn how to I'm at a point now that if somebody cuts me off and flicks me off, I just transform the energy. God bless you. I hope you have a better day. It don't even get me worked up no more. It doesn't have that impact because I understand this. Here's the thing, that's energy. That's why you feel the way you feel when it happens. It's energy. The question is, will I allow a stranger's energy to dictate my flow? Am I going to allow that person to have power, their energy, to have power over my energy, or will I exercise the dominant energy in the space? The law of perpetual transmutation of energy. Now, real quick, because this is not often explained to us, this also goes into the law of vibration in this way. As human beings, we have the ability to alter one another's vibrations. This is why it's so important that you're very clear and thoughtful about and intentional about who you spend your time with and where you go and the groups you're in. All right. I think about the event yesterday. It's really good energy, man. You couldn't walk in that space and not feel good. That was the energy of the room. That was the energy that was being broadcasted. You can walk into some other rooms and feel negative energy. And if you stay long enough, your energy will be negative too. It's the law of vibration. Now, here's where I was going to go with this, and then we're going to move to law 12. This is why single folks, this is why sex is such a sacred act. Somebody probably knew I was going here. The law of perpetual transmutation of energy. If you encounter someone, let's say it's a Friday night, and this person seems happy and upbeat and funny and interesting, but you don't know that underneath the facade is the vibration of depression. And then you go lay with that person. You may have never dealt with the vibration of depression before. It's never been introduced to you. And after dealing with that individual, all of a sudden, you will have to battle a brand new energy. This is why you just got to be like, this is something like, man, if somebody had taught me this way, oh man, it would have changed so much. Like, it'd be like, Linnell, just don't do it, right? Don't do it. No. Hey, you shouldn't do that, you know? And then they use all the big words, the cations and the, you know, and it's like, but nobody's explaining this, that the law of perpetual transmutation of energy says, you better be careful. You better not be guessing about a person's energy and what they're struggling with, because that energy can have an impact on you. The law of perpetual transmutation of energy. This is why when you see a couple who's been married for a while, folks be like, well, y'all look alike, right? Or they'll say, y'all got the same mannerisms. This is, when you look at marriage, it says two become one. Two become one energy, because they have bound themselves spiritually through sex and being in the close proximity in the home, the energy and the vibration of the home, the energy and the vibration of their sexual experiences. Before you know it, they both scratch their nose the same way. They both look off the same way, you know, and it'd be a little bit of hers and a little bit of his, right? Becoming one. This is how it works. Like, these laws, they explain so much. Okay. Law number 12. I like law number 12. It's a great way to end. The law of relativity. The law of relativity says that everything is relative and can be understood in comparison to something else. It also states that challenges and problems are subjective and depend on our perspective. Let me say that one more time. Your challenges, I'm actually reading the definition. Don't get mad at me. Because this can upset somebody. Your challenges and your problems are subjective. And they really just depend on your perspective. So as big and as confronting as you believe your challenge and your problem is, what the law of relativity states is that if your perspective shifts, the challenge shifts. One of my prayers, I ask the Creator all the time to give me the wisdom to solve big problems. Give me the wisdom to solve big problems. That prayer aligns with the law of relativity, in that really the only way you solve big problems is that in the eyes of the Creator, you realize that they're small. This is huge to me, but for the Creator, nothing. So then let me get your wisdom. So that way this big problem of mine can become minute. This is one of the reasons why it's so important that we suspend judgment. Because it's all relative. It's all relative. One drink might be too much for me. 3 drinks might not be enough for Justin. I want to be very clear about this, right? It's like, so what do the holy texts say? Don't get drunk. Now, if you read the Quran, it says not at all. That's the only one that says not at all, believe it or not, right? The rest of them don't say not at all. Now, different groups have rules where they say not at all, but that's not necessarily what it states, okay? It says no drunkenness. So that means, let's look at the law of relativity. I like using things like this because it triggers folks. And triggering gets you to thinking. Like, I want you thinking, right? So Justin can have 3, and I'll be like, He ain't right. He drinking too much. This is why we have to suspend judgment. I can't judge that brother, right? Because I can have one and it's too much. I shouldn't have did it. I shouldn't have done it. Now I can't stand up straight. Now I can't walk. Now I can't think right, right? The law of relativity says it's about me and my perspective, my experience, and I can't measure someone else's because it's all relative. It's all relative. When it comes to life, the law of relativity is just pushing us to look through multiple angles. You know what angle I like to look at when I see things? A personal angle. So if I see Ade doing something, like, he shouldn't do that. Wait, hold on, Linnell, don't think that. Where am I doing that? Where am I? So the law of relativity always makes me, where am I doing that? Let me not be focused on this brother over here, right? Because it's already difficult. We just covered 12 laws that I need to apply to my life. What time do I have to be focused on somebody else's? Like what bandwidth do I have to be thinking about somebody else? I'm trying to figure this out for me. I'm trying to figure this out for my family. I love you, but I can't be concerned about what y'all doing in your house. Do you know that when I went over there, they were letting their children, hey, what am I letting my children do? Like this is where it goes for me, right? What is Legend and Rain doing? Ooh, that in, my perspective of what I saw in the Mooney household. I'm using people's names now. I know they watching, right? I don't think I like that. Now I can sit back and judge it, or I can look through the lens of what's happening in mine. I saw Brother Fenton yesterday. Oh, I heard him say something to somebody that I don't think he should have said. But I can't spend time thinking about him. I got to think about what I'm saying and what I'm doing. Because did I say something that I shouldn't have said? Finn, you didn't say nothing, man. I know you listening. Y'all get where I'm going? Man, we will sit up and put all our focus on others and consider that it's just another distraction for what you should be doing. How can I judge you? I don't know your circumstance. I don't know your walk. I don't know your connection to the Creator. I have no clue. I have no idea. I grew up in a church where they would look at folks and say, they not saved. Oh, they can't be saved. Look how they look. Well, what I'm saying right now is you have no clue because it's all relative. They said, man, this is what the good book says, man look on the outward appearance, but the Creator looks at the heart. We'll look at somebody, look at a young lady, she needs to put some clothes on. She, all this judgment, you don't know what's going on in that young girl's heart. She could be walking and praying. And the Creator just hasn't told her everything that she needs to know quite yet because she's not ready. But when you measure the hearts, her heart is cleaner than yours. Oh, and I'm serious. I'm not taking it back. We got to tend to our own garden. Got to tend to your own house. Got to tend to your own room. Tend to your own closet. Tend to your own drawer where you put all the junk. We got a drawer in the house. It's in the kitchen. You get guests, you just take it. You know what I'm saying? They walk in and it's so clean. It's all relative. It looks so good. It's all relative. Then you walk in somebody else's house, they don't have that drawer. So you see it on the counter, you go, they junky. What? Who? How am I righteous when I can hide mine and they can't? How am I righteous? Boy, we better be careful. Justin, is this a big production room or a small production room? It's all relative. See, he just fell right into it. You see how easy it is to do? It's all relative. If you go down there to WRLL, this is big. Right? This is big. This is a big production room. Now you go over to, where was it I've been before? WGN is small. It's small. It's all relative. This little small room, somebody else is like, this is so big and magnificent. This is wonderful. It's all relative. The more energy you put out, the more likely the universe is to manifest it. The more action you take, the more likely the creator is to support that action with blessings. One of the things we talk about in coaching is this mental filter, this cognitive distortion of right, wrong. A lot of us got it. But see, here's the thing. We learned it. We learned it from a parent. We watched our parents judge somebody. That ain't right. We sitting in the back seat, we watching it all. Then we grow up doing the same thing. That ain't right. So we learn these things of what's right and wrong from others. I remember when I was teaching coaches, and I was teaching them, get them certified, etc. And this is like the last year before I left the organization. And we were talking about this whole context of right, wrong. Like there's no right, there's no wrong, right? And it's just and this minister was like, he got upset. He was angry. I can't be with, what is you teaching? I was like, well, it's in the context of judgment, right? Like I can't be the one to say what's right and wrong. In the context of judgment. He's like, murder is wrong. Okay. What's the context? What's the context? You say, Linnell, are you saying? I'm saying, what's the context? See, and let me tell you what I mean. If we go back to ancient societies like the Mayans believed that they had to sacrifice small children for the rain to come. And if you weren't willing to give up your child, you were wrong. And this was their entire society. Their society was based on this. It's the Incas of the Mayans, I'm sorry. But their society, the structure was based on this. So in that society, you were wrong if you hid your child. You could be the cause of droughts and all these things. And they come after you. It was the righteous thing to do. To give up, I don't know what number child it was, but to give up that child. It was the righteous thing to do. It's all relative. This is why it becomes such a personal journey. I'm not so much concerned with, now, was Jeffrey Dahmer, was that evil? Absolutely. When we come to the spiritual context of things, like some things are just clear, right? Spiritually, you have to know right from wrong. I'm using this as an example because we get so caught up in the minutia of what is right and wrong. Is it wrong to run a stop sign? It's relative. Is there a child in the car that's hurt and you're getting to the hospital? It's relative. We get caught up on seeing things from a perspective and then using that limited vantage point to make hardcore judgment calls about people. And that's what I'm talking about here. One setback that seems unsurmountable to one person could be viewed as just a minor hurdle to someone else with a different perspective. One setback at a certain point in history could seem monumental, where that setback today is simple. Take a fever, for instance. 200 years ago, you catch a fever, man, people be, oh boy, we don't know what's going to happen. They have to call all the prayer warriors. Hope this child gets over their fever. Now, 21st century, child catches a fever. I'll run to the Walgreens, please. Grab me some Tylenol flu. It's all relative. Hey, my inspired peoples. Linnell Harris here, certified ontological coach and trainer. I'm so excited that you're watching the channel. By the way, did you know you can catch the show live at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning? You can. All you have to do is go to my Facebook stream, Coach Linnell Harris, catch the stream live, or you can listen to the radio show via iHeart at WVON 1690 AM. But since you're here, if you love the content, I ask that you share it, like this particular video, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you're having a great day.